Okay, that's good to go. Anything else I should be pushing, Kati?
Yeah, maybe follow the video order thing or something.
I feel so useless.
Thank you. No, all good. It's just 2 minutes left,
Yeah.
so I would suggest
Have a
find
good
your
practice,
cushion.
everyone.
Yes. Take your time to settle. Good morning, Hoku. Good morning, Mandy. Find your cushion, please. Find your stable posture. And some relaxedness. And thank you for staying on top of our schedule changes, the monthly ones. When I look at the numbers of folks here, we have a quarter that didn't. When you sit today, as always, please don't try to force anything. Try to feel openness and not closedness. Heben yorai kyo kodo shoshujo robe of liberation boundless, fields beyond both form and formless, wearing the Tathagata's teachings, vowing to save all sentient beings. Daisai Geda Puku Muso Fuku Denne Heben Yorai Kyo Kodo Shoshujo. We'll have a short round of Kinhin now. Please be careful with getting up. Don't stumble. Kinhin. Zazen. After our ceremony today, I will offer a little talk about the topic of freedom, and I would like to invite you to understand Master Dogen's Zazen is a practice of joy and ease, joyful ease, in such a way that if you don't close to easily on your mind, on your thoughts, on how you think things are, and have instead an open mind, an open mindset, that there is quite some joy and ease and freedom to feel in sitting. Thank you for sitting together. We will have our long service today, as it's our monthly Sunday Zazenkai. We will chant the Heart Sutra in Japanese, and we add the Sandokai in our usual Treeleaf melodic way. So if you want to stay for that, can stay for that, that would be wonderful. I will do my best to offer a talk afterwards for roughly half an hour or something. Don't feel forced to stay. It's totally okay if you leave, but I would appreciate it if you would stay. Oh, that looks good. I should probably change my camera and stop talking. There we are. As usual, please, for a clue on when and where to bow, follow Björn, our Inu today. You bow where he bows.
Is my fan bothersome at all? Can you hear it?
Yes, nice.
Yeah, but can is it bothersome or is it just terrible?
Oh, no, it's just fine.
Okay.
Not at all.
Just 1 second. Is everyone ready?
From what I can see here, it looks like it.
Makahanya haramita shingyo Kanji zai bosatsu gyojin hanya haramita jisho gengon gaigu Saiku Yagushari Shigi Fui Gugu Fui Shigi Shigi Soku Ze Gugu 서구제 식이주 소교 식이야구번 여제 샤리시 제쇼호구 소후 쇼후 메츠후구 후조 후조 후겐제고구주 무시기 마주 소교 시기 마겐니비 제시니 무시기 쇼고미 소구호마겐가이 나이시마이 시기가이 마마며 야고마마며 진나이시마로시 야구마로시 진마구슈메츠도무치 야구마 도쿠이마 쇼도코보다이사타에 한야하람이다 고신무게게무게게고 그후언리 사이텐도무소구견의 한산제쇼부츠에 한야하람이다 고도구와노구다라산묘구산보다이 고치 한야하람이다 제다이진슈 제다이묘슈 제무조슈 제무도도슈 노조이사이구 시즈후고고 세즈한야하람이다 슈소구 세즈슈 와수갸테 하라갸테 하라소갸테 보지서와가 한야신요. The identity of relative and absolute. The mind of the great sage of India is intimately conveyed west and east, while human faculties are both wise or dull. In the way there are no northern or southern ancestors. The subtle source shines clear in the light, the branching streams flow in the dark. To be attached to things is primordial illusion. To encounter the absolute is not yet enlightenment. All spheres, every sense and field, intermingle even as they shine alone, interacting even as they merge, yet keeping their places and expressions of their own. Sights differ primarily in shape and character, and sounds in harsh or soothing tones. The dark makes all words one. The brightness distinguishes good and bad phrases. The four elements return to their true nature as a child turns to its mother. Fire is hot, water is wet, wind moves and the earth is dense. Eye and form, ear and sound, nose and smell, tongue and taste, the sweet and sour, each independent of the other, like leaves that come from the same root. And though leaves and root must go back to the source, both root and leaves have their own uses. Light is also darkness, but do not think of it as darkness. Darkness is light, do not see it as light. Light and darkness are not one, not two, like the foot before and the foot behind in walking. Each thing has its own being, which is not different from its place and function. The relative is the absolute, as a box and its lid. The absolute meets the relative, like two arrow points that touch in midair. Hearing this, simply perceive what is, make no criterion. If you do not see the way, you do not see it even as you walk upon it. Walking forward in the way, you draw no nearer, progress no farther. One who fails to see this truth is mountains and rivers away. Listen, those who would perceive this subtle matter. Live well your time by night and day. Buddha nature pervades the whole universe, reality existing right here now. In reciting the heart of the perfection of Great Wisdom Sutra and the identity of relative and absolute, we dedicate our sincere efforts to Shakyamuni Buddha, Honored One, the historical Buddha and teacher, and to those ancestral teachers, Eihei Dogen Honored One, Soji Keizen Honored One, all successive honored ones up until Jigaku Rempo Honored One and Gudowafu Honored One, and to all other honored ones throughout history, same yet diverse honored ones whose names have been forgotten or left unsaid. We also dedicate these efforts to the three treasures, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, to all awakened ones and teachers in all places and times. We especially seek tranquility and well-being for all creatures now suffering or ill in health. May they be serene through all their ills. May their lives be at peace and wisdom pervade the darkness of ignorance. We dedicate our hopes and aspirations to all victims of war and violence and natural events, to the injured and to all families touched by these tragedies, to the healing of hatred in all countries and among all peoples, to the wisdom and compassion of our world leaders, to the peace of the world and harmony of all beings. Thus let the harmful effects of words, thoughts, and actions be dispelled, and compassion bloom in perpetual spring. May we all realize and live the enlightened way together. All Buddhas throughout space and time. All Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, Mahaprajna Paramita. All harmful acts, words, and thoughts ever committed by me since of old, on account of beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and mind, now I atone for them all. I vow to save all sentient beings, though beings numberless, to transform all delusions, though delusions inexhaustible, to perceive reality, though reality is boundless, to attain the enlightened way, a way non-attainable. I vow to save all sentient beings, though beings numberless, To transform all delusions, though delusions inexhaustible. To perceive reality, though reality is boundless. To attain the enlightened way, a way non-attainable. I vow to save all sentient beings, though beings numberless. To transform all delusions, though delusions inexhaustible. To perceive reality, though reality is boundless. To attain the enlightened way, a way non-attainable.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Björn.
I'm losing my voice.
I feel you. I'm in a small room with a lot of incense. Everyone,
It's not clear
please
to me what's happening.
take your time, everyone. Make yourself comfortable. Fetch something to drink. I need to leave some of the precious incense out of the door. Maybe I should make you see me. That would be helpful. There we are. Thank you. Where is my tea? There it is.
I've noticed for some weeks now that my voice is going when I try to change. And you know, with my work, that's not really a good thing.
Yeah, no. So, everyone settled? I need to catch a little bit of breath, but it's fine. We will chant the verse of opening the sutras and we'll open the sutras with that.
The Dharma, incomparably profound and infinitely subtle, is always encountered but rarely perceived. Now we see, hear, receive, and maintain this. May we all realize the Tathagata's true meaning. The Dharma, incomparably profound and infinitely subtle, is always encountered but rarely perceived. Now we see, hear, receive, and maintain this. May we all realize the Tathagata's true meaning. The Dharma, incomparably profound and infinitely subtle, is always encountered but rarely perceived. Now we see, hear, receive, and maintain this. May we all realize the Tathagata's true meaning.
Thank you. Quite some weight when you have to speak something after those words. So, let me spotlight myself and let me look at you. And please feel free to, as it is about freedom, pun intended, to take something to drink, to move. You don't have to be frozen. I think Buddhism as a whole and through all the centuries and through all of its different ways it acts in the world is not so much different as a whole picture, the different parts and the different centuries and what we are doing now in Zen. It's mainly looking at the same basic underlying reality of things, but through different ways, through different methods, through different lenses. And the lens I want to use to look at our practice as at Zen today is freedom. Last month, Bjorn talked about attention, which is also a very nice lens to look through at our practice. And like all lenses, the lens I will be using today has some speckles and some dirt on it. But I think it's a helpful one. It's one that, at least one that brought me closer to practice and that actually made me want to ordain in the first place. So, looking through the lens of freedom at why are we practicing? Why are we here? Why? What is this all? Why did I start with it? I think there are many different answers to that. I gave myself at least 50 different answers, and you all might have one or two to offer too. Becoming calmer, suffering less, understand ourselves or the world better, find some peace, become more kind. Life feels maybe a bit incomplete. We're just curious. Someone told us meditation is good for you. And sometimes I'm not entirely sure why I practice, honestly. And all these answers are valid answers, of course. And I found myself wondering if they might have something in common, underlying under them. And for me, they have. For me, they all, on a deeper layer, speak for the urge to find some freedom, to find something less closed, less, I'm missing the word, less strangling. And that, for me, it's definitely true. It brought me into this. I was fabricating a cage for myself out of habits, out of fears, out of expectations, out of stories I made, who I should be and how the world should be and what possibilities are there for me to act on. It doesn't feel like a cage. It just feels like everyday life. It feels like, hey, that's what the world is. That's what it's supposed to be. But I don't think anymore that it is like that. I think that there is quite some suffering that hit me out of that idea. And with starting to practice, with continuing to practice, those ideas, that those bars of that cage didn't disappear for me, and my life is still not free from difficulties. I'm not calm and wise and things like that. But that cage is becoming less and less convincing to me. It's not able to contain me anymore completely. In a more poetic sense, maybe a horizon opened, although that is a quite big picture, but it feels like that at times. And I think that quite sense of freedom is what practice really gave me, and where I decided that this is what I want to pass on to people. What I think is the source of suffering and the source of feeling things too difficult to stand at points. Of course, it didn't change me much in the first place. Freedom is what I wanted to talk about. And when we hear the word freedom, our minds often go to familiar images. We imagine freedom as no obligations anymore, a life without pain, a life without difficult people. We imagine being able to do what we want and shape life according to our wishes. That's freedom. And it's an attractive picture, and there is nothing wrong with that picture. But, but. It is good to want to be free from oppression, from illness, from poverty, fear, violence, from unnecessary suffering. When suffering can be reduced, we should definitely do that for ourselves, for others, when we can improve our circumstances. Don't wait. And Zen is also is not asking us to do that. Not that all circumstances are the same and you need to meet everything with equanimity. But if you think about it, if there is that one unpleasant conversation you have with someone in the morning and that takes away your peace for the whole day, that's probably not what freedom looks like. When freedom depends entirely on how your circumstances around look like, that's not really free either. My happiness depends on another person behaving differently, on success arriving, or on pain disappearing, on my mind finally becoming quiet. Then freedom depends on conditions I have absolutely no control over, and I can't work on that. This ordinary way of looking at freedom is not wrong, but incomplete, I think. And practice is asking us for a much quieter, but also more unsettling view. It asks us if there can be freedom within the presence of pain, there can be freedom in uncertainty, while there is grief, without waiting life to become different. Not as an abstract philosophical question, of course. This question arises each time we sit down like we did today. We sit down with a life that's already here, not the life we hope to have next year, not the person we hope to become after 10 more years of practice. The only thing that's there is this body and this mind and this moment. The projection to the future is something else. That's the opposite of freedom, actually, longing for that kind of freedom. It is closely connected to changing circumstances. If I only had a different job, pain would go away, if the relationship would be easier, my mind were quieter. But I think Zen points to a different kind of freedom, and if that is real, it must be possible even before circumstances change, in how we relate to the circumstances and not how we work on changing them. It's quite easy when I look at my own mind how to make anger out of difficult emotions, to passing thoughts becoming opinions, failure becoming the kind of person I am. That's an easy next step, if you see that. The mind classifies, compares, judges, defines. We need concepts to live. We learn from experience. But something changes when concepts stop being useful tools and become reality itself. When there is the I am shy, I am failure, I am successful, I'm anxious, he's always like that, she never understands. This should not be happening. When looking closely, these statements have something in common. And that is that they freeze reality. They freeze what is alive into something that is fixed and not changing anymore. They transform a moment into an identity, into something that is not flexible at all. And I think every prison sentence begins with certainty. Not the certainty in sense of knowledge, but the certainty that we already know completely what this moment is, who that person is, who we ourselves are. And once we know that, freedom is gone. It's fixed. Nothing is changing anymore. Every fixed identity narrows the possibilities we have to respond to something. When there is a fixed I am angry, it will not become here is anger anymore. And when there is a fixed I'm afraid, there is no fear is present anymore. So yeah, I think practice changes our relationship with that when we look at it. Our emotions are not longer the whole world or the whole self. And with that space around it, other responses are possible. The freedom of practice is that freedom that removes the power our thoughts and emotions and identities have over us. When you look at how the world today is approaching the self, is approaching the things I'm talking about, then we are often encouraged to be ourselves, to discover our authentic self, to express our true self, not the Buddhist one, to improve ourselves. That's kind of the wrong side of freedom to me. And Zen is turning that around. Zen is asking, what self? The self before my coffee, before the breakfast this morning? The self after it? The self that is angry, the joyful one? The one that is frightened, the one that is sitting here now and talking? Practice is not rejecting any of these. It invites to look careful and to stop mistaking any one of those things for the whole truth. And I think this is where my freedom begins, where my personal freedom through practice begins. Not someone else, not constructing a better version, just not holding ourselves so tightly anymore. I think this is also the point where this practice of Buddhism meets the theory, where it meets that concept of emptiness. All things are empty, which sounds discouraging to non-Buddhists actually. Hearing the word empty, we imagine absence, meaninglessness, or non-existence. But emptiness is not saying that nothing is real. It points to the way in which things are real. There is, I've written that down, Nagarjuna, our ancestor, the great philosopher of the Mahayana, wrote, "Whatever is dependently arisen, that is explained to be emptiness. That, being a dependent designation, is itself the middle way." Things are empty because they do not exist independently. Nothing stands alone. Everything comes into being through all that immeasurable connections to everything else. And the other view of looking at it, the other theoretical lens, is that this is called dependent arising. Emptiness not being a different teaching added on top of that depending arising, but another way of describing it. Things are empty because they are completely dependent on everything else. And that, in the first moment, sounds like the opposite of freedom. It sounds like limitation. Because the standard thing is we imagine freedom as independence, as needing nobody, as standing entirely on our own. But that picture is turned upside down from Buddhism also. If something would be completely independent and having an unchanging essence, no change would be possible. Our practice would be useless. A child would never become an adult. An angry person would never forgive. The possibility of transformation of what we are trying to do depends on the absence of a fixed essence. So emptiness as possibility, not as subtraction of something. For me, it's easier, and I used that word in the beginning of our sittings, to think of emptiness as openness. Not because it's the better translation, it's not, but because it points to something we recognize in practice. That conversations remain alive when they stay open. Relationships can change when they stay open. Our life can unfold because they remain open to conditions we cannot predict. I hope, what does the time say? It's still okay. If I branch out a little, I've watched a little YouTube video some time ago from John Cleese, the Monty Python's guy, talking about unfolding yourself, talking about creativity, how creativity works, and he stresses a lot that there is an open mode and a closed mode of our mind, and that creativity can only happen in the open mode, in the mode where we allow our preconceptions, where we allow our concepts to soften. And he drags that example of discovering penicillin, where the guy had his petri dishes and was growing bacteria colonies, and he had that one petri dish where nothing grew on. And in closed mode, you would have thrown it away. That's not working, I make it anew. And in open mode, you get curious, you look at it and think, hey, why is that thing not growing? And he discovered a mold that killed it, and that mold is called penicillium. And there we are, we have an area of antibiotics. I mean, it's maybe too much to, I don't want to add to that narration that Zen sparks creativity, but I think that Zen is kind of doing the same thing, that Zen is trying to again and again teach us not to close our minds, to stay open, to not close around fixed opinions, to not close around emotions that are just passing through, not close around ideas who we are or should be. And that changed the way how I hear the word emptiness, that I sometimes picture as openness. So emptiness not as the absence of reality, but as the absence of necessity, maybe. Not the laws of nature, philosophical questions, necessity, but that necessity that you feel this certainty that things and people and we ourselves must be what we imagine to be. So if emptiness is more than just a philosophical idea, I think it should be visible somewhere. For me, it becomes visible in how I approach practice, not in those dramatic experiences and extraordinary states, but in those small moments when thoughts are not becoming beliefs, when emotions are not becoming identities, when opinions are not becoming an argument, when there is a self that is not becoming a prison. Everything continues like it always did, but it feels like the necessity has softened and there is more space, more openness, more freedom. I would call it one of the miracles of Shikantaza, how it is working, how it is actually changing us. We are not trying to manufacture a particular state of mind. We are not trying to become someone else. We simply sit again and again, allow thoughts, feelings, sensations to rise and pass. Not trying to become a better version of ourselves. At first that feels surprisingly unproductive. It does again and again at times, but because we have this constant encouragement from everywhere to improve ourselves. How, be more productive, less stressed, all of that. But that Zen way is not a rejection of growth, right? It's not just we don't have a goal and we sit without a goal. It doesn't mean we don't grow from it. Practice changes us. Anyone who sat for years knows that. We become more patient and more compassionate and less carried away by anger, by fear. But not in the way that we manufacture it, and more in a way that things fall away. That we don't cling so tightly anymore to things. You can probably, in a Soto Sangha, you can probably not talk about that without mentioning Dogen's to study the Buddha way is to study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self is to be enlightened by the 10,000 things. If you don't hear forgetting the selves as making the self disappear for a while, but if you hear it as forgetting for a while that it was ever a fixed thing, I think then it fits quite well into this thought train, that the self is not erased but released. I think freedom, that deep freedom, is to discover that that we ourselves, the situation we are in, doesn't have to become that prison I talked about. It doesn't need to be so much more, I think. That's a very deep sense of freedom to me. Our sitting that is revealing that openness. But not to make this just a talk about emptiness and freedom, to something unhinged. I would like to say that emptiness is like everything else not existing independently. And freedom is, like everything else, not existing independently. It is subject to emptiness too. Our lives that are woven together from all those causes and conditions, and the freedom discovered through practice cannot belong just to us, right? It belongs to everything. It exists only in relationship to everything else. The more careful we look, the harder it becomes to draw a boundary between ourselves, which is not a fixed thing, and others, which is not a fixed thing too. Everything I am has been given to me. This moment here depends on countless people I've never met. Nothing stands alone, neither do I. And when I look at it in this light, then compassion itself begins to look like less like a moral achievement. Compassion is also a simple recognition of all of that, what I just talked about. If my life is inseparable from yours, then caring for you is not a denial of myself, and caring for myself is not a rejection of you. We all arise together. Actually, I think that's an aspect of freedom too. And if you look at the precepts, in that light, they seem to be descriptions, not commandments. They seem to just describe what life begins to look like when you stop insisting upon a separate self. Of course, practice, right? I mean, I'm certainly not perfectly keeping the precepts. I'm impatient, I protect my opinions, I place my own comfort before everyone else suffering at times. But practice makes that easy to notice, and I think that's where an ethical life begins, without forcing anything. An ethical life that grows out of itself, that grows out of practice, that is not a force upon me, but a free acting. That's also the point where I notice again and again when I think about these things, where I notice that Zazen and the precepts are interwoven, that without Zazen the precepts are some kind of forced moralism and ideas measured against a perfect self, which is the opposite of freedom. And without the precepts, Zazen risks becoming to be a private refugee, a way of cultivating calm with remaining indifferent, which is a quite close state of mind either. And sitting teaches us to see that together, and teaches us that the precepts and Zazen are the same, and that none of that affects our freedom. Right? When you hear precepts and commandments and all that, it sounds like the opposite of freedom, which I believe it's not. Freedom is not the opposite of responsibility. It makes responsibility possible. That freedom that then brings us. So, when through the lens of freedom, what I try to do, I look at our practice, at identity, at emptiness, at dependent arising, shikantaza, the precepts. I think none of that has ever been separate. They are the different ideas, the different lenses itself that point towards the same lived reality. Dependent arising is what we call it when we seek to understand it. Emptiness is what we call it when we seek to describe it. Freedom is it when we begin to live it. Compassion is it when it embraces the world. I don't think it's, no, the other way around. I think Zen, Soto Zen is right when it puts Shikantaza in the middle of all that, to meet this moment just as it is the basic for all of it, the basic for freedom, for realizing that nothing is fixed, for realizing that no moment is perfect, that we don't need to understand Zen, that everything is already working the way it should. And to teach us to not close the mind around certainty, and without force it opens and opens again. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form. It invites us to see the ordinary world without imagining that anything needs to be different or stands alone or possesses a fixed nature. Everything, including all of us sitting on the other side of this Zoom window here, is each completely itself and belongs completely to everything else, like we just chanted in the Zazenkai. When we will close the sutras, leave our questions, go on with the world, emails answering, conversations, mistakes to make, apologies to offer, this practice will be with us there a bit, and it will help us to understand that we are not in a cage acting on all these things. Perhaps freedom is not something we attain. Freedom is maybe simply what remains after we stop insisting that life or we ourselves must be the stories we have been telling us. And maybe that's enough. I think so, and maybe that's enough from me too. So, Björn, should we close the sutras? I think we do so, and then we can let some talking fade out.
I can try.
Yeah, please do.
May the merits of these teachings penetrate into each thing in our places, so that we and every sentient being together may realize the Buddha's way. All Buddhas throughout space and time, all Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, Mahaprajna Paramita.
Thank you for listening to my musings. I think I overdid it a little bit. There's not so much time to talk left. But please, if you have some comment, if you want to speak about a certain aspect or tell me that I'm completely wrong, that is all very welcome. You don't have to, but please do.
Thank you very much. It was very, very nice.
Thank you for your kind words.
Thank you, Gote. There was a thing you threw in there which I loved, which deeply resonated. When you spoke about Zen as having a component of creativity, I thought that was quite inspired. I always say to people, and they don't really like this very much, but I always say to people that Zen is not a doctrine, it's not something to believe in, it's a method to practice the Buddha's teaching. And in that sense, it is nothing but creativity. And you really, in a nice way, you presented that idea, because when, like Master Dogen said, you study the self, you completely see the self dissipate in front of you. But you also realize that the myriad of things are working constantly in this process of cause condition to make your experience of reality possible. But in the same sense, our actions and our doing contributes to this flowiness of process of causes and conditions, which means, like Master Dogen says, creativity is everything, because in every moment you have to find a way to practice the Buddha Dharma within the conditions that exist, which are always new, always different, always unique, always not necessarily suitable to freedom of suffering or to calm and peace, but sufficient to be transformed. And without creativity, that's impossible. If I'm locked into this pattern of thinking that only one particular thing is possible, only one way of doing something is possible, only one result can be expected, I'm done. Like you said, it's like strangled, it's suffocating. So I think that was a very inspired reflection. Thank you.
Thank you. There is a lot in this little Cleese talk. I listened to what reminded me of Zen, when he also, of course, as the comedian he is, he said that humor has the power to kick our brains into the open mode when we've been into the closed mode. And I think when you look at all the old koans and all the old stories of the old masters, there is so much humor in it that kicks me out of my closed mode again and again. Yeah.
This is the part where you all should contribute. This is the part where you all should ask a question or say something.
No, yeah, yes. No, but I'm ready to release you into the rest of your Sunday too. So if I look at the clock, we are just about at our ending time. I'm fine with taking that one too. It seems like that.
So you're saying you're giving people freedom?
No, they don't need me for that. So thank you, everyone. It was a wonderful Sunday together. I was happy to be able to talk for half an hour without anyone interrupting me. So have a nice Sunday, everyone. There will, of course, be our Sunday sitting for peace later. And that's a nice thing to attend to.
And happy August, everyone. Happy August. We're 30 days ahead of Ango, so y'all better be ready.
And those of you who are thinking about taking Jukai with us and studying 3 months with us, continue nourishing that thought. It's just a month away until you have to say yes or no to it. No, you don't have to say anything, but you can say yes to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good Sunday.
Have a nice day. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you so much for the great talk.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a nice Sunday.
Bye.
You too.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Kota. Thank you, Beyond.
Thank you very much. Have a good morning.